Francesca Genco. I was born in New York in 1967. Grew up mostly there and then in the Philadelphia area. Both sides of my family are really musical, and particularly I had more exposure to my father's side of the family, and he and his two brothers sang in a trio for a number of years. They grew up in sort of like a charismatic kind of church, like an Assembly of God church. So they were speaking in tongues, but it was like all in Italian. So, his parents came over from Italy, so he and his two brothers, grew up in that kind of an environment. So they would sing these beautiful, emotional kind of Christian music. So all three of them sang, and then my father's younger brother became a minister, and he and his family, his three kids and his wife, who's an amazing organist and pianist, they cut all these albums. And I'm younger than any of the cousins, so I would listen to them and like sit up in my room and listen and sing along with them when I was even really young. And I took piano lessons from the age of 6, like all the way up to age 18, 19. So, there was music in that way for me. And I was in choirs and stuff in high school and in musicals. But it seemed kind of natural, because I was around it a lot. And my mother's side of the family, her mother was an amazing pianist. And she used to, my grandmother, on my mom's side, she would call up and she would ask my mother to hold the phone out while I was playing piano so she could listen. And she'd say, oh, she's such a budding virtuoso. And so, I had this sort of, this encouragement all along the way to do that stuff. And I remember realizing at one point that I actually had a good singing voice. I knew I could sing, but there was some point where I sort of toppled over into, I actually can really sing, I genetically had a pretty good voice, and then started to play around with that. Well, I've always been partial to minor tones. I'm not sure why, but that's probably a personality thing. But some of the influences on that have definitely been, for a number of years, I was studying Egyptian belly dancing as a dancer, and I loved the music. I loved the singing, the singing in Arabic, and it just was so deep and rich and full of emotion, And so I was very drawn to that music as a dancer, but I think, of course, it also has influenced my own singing and how I tend to sing if I'm just sort of given free rein. It has that kind of quality, like you're saying, sort of Eastern. I think even more than music from India and that kind of stuff, which of course also I feel has had an influence on me. But there's that kind of haunting, minor key, kind of yearning quality to those songs that I found really powerful and very moving. And so I know that had a really deep influence on me. And also, when I was growing up, when I would come down for breakfast, my mother would have candles lit and she'd have music on. And a lot of the time it would be something like Gregorian chants or something like that, something very meditative, but really. And I didn't realize till I made my first album how much that had influenced me. Just listening to that, especially in the morning, when you first wake up and you're very porous, kind of psychically and emotionally, and just coming downstairs. And, I thought my mom was totally weird. Of course, that was my duty as a teenager to think she was weird. But I actually loved it. I loved it. So that really came in as a deep influence for me as well. And also, I think that just the tone of my voice, there's something about the tone of it that lends itself to a kind of some people say mystical quality. I don't know what you would call it, but it's more sort of round and sort of deeper. It's not so bright. I kind of naturally was also drawn because my voice seemed to match up well with those kind of that kind of singing or that kind of tone. when I lived in Philadelphia, I was on a pretty much a weekly basis getting together with a group of people who would improvise a lot of percussion, but also singing together. And it was like every Tuesday night. It's still happening. So when I go back there, I still go there. And we did a lot of playing around with vowels and sounds and, you know, bouncing off of one another to create sort of sound tapestries. And so just it's just the feeling of the sounds in my mouth, or, you know, that kind of goes along with the quality of whatever the mood is of the music. And honestly, other than that, and I love languages. I mean, I studied Italian and French, and I lived in Indonesia for a brief period of time, and, you know, so I really enjoy playing around with sounds and that sort of thing. So if I'm, say, listening to a drone or a piece of music, and I'm going to improvise to that piece of music, there's something where I can kind of get inside of the quality of it, and then I'm not consciously making things up. I'm drawing on, of course, all this experience and studying of languages and stuff like that, and then it just kind of comes out in its own way. Well, I did have a lot of fun singing for those 3 tracks for that film Elysium. That was an interesting experience to actually be in the studio listening to the music, but also watching the film footage and singing also in response to the film footage. So that was an interesting piece, because of course there's another layer, there's a visual. So I enjoyed that. That was fun to do, and to kind of bring those worlds together in that kind of a way. And I really, really like the composer Ryan Ammon. He's a great guy. I had a lot of fun working with him and all the people that were working on that. So that was fun. That was cool. And that stands out the most. I have been in an extended collaboration more recently, over the last few months, with Lincoln Yeager, you know, a composer who lives in England. And that's been really great, you know, to bat things back and forth, as opposed to have a piece of music, say, presented to me and say, okay, what can you do with this? Like, can you sing this? Can you sing that? And then that's it. You know, to actually have that kind of collaboration back and forth. Here's the idea. Here's the flow. Okay, let me sing something like this. Okay, yeah, I'm going to change it a little. I'll send it back to you. You know, as collaborations go. I'm really enjoying that. And we're doing lots of different things. It's not all the same kind of quality. And he just sent me an email. He's like, would you be up for doing some jazzy Christmas songs? I was like, sure, let's do a gospel song too, you know, so to actually get to play around with stuff. Again, because I will tend to sing a certain way, and then that's what people tend to identify with me and be attracted to, which is okay. But for me as a singer, it's great to be stretched. I really enjoyed it. There's something about it that's very trance-inducing, you know, to just kind of get into a tone and go with the tone, and, you know, just there's something, you know, pure about it. And it felt in a way similar to me to how I would often feel when I was leading a chanting circle. You know, that kind of internal experience and expressing it through the sound, through the pure sound. And it was also a great exercise for me as a vocalist, you know, of control and, you know, like relaxation and control at the same time, you know, that whole process, that dance between the releasing and opening for the sound to come through, but also really having the support that you need, you know, for abdominally and all that kind of stuff. So I actually found it like a really good exercise also. And you know, you were all great to work with, so I felt totally comfortable, you know, so that was great. I mean, that was really great. And I learned some things about my voice through the process of doing the library with you, like at the point where we realized, let's go back and do some staccato work before I continue to do this kind of more crying, intense vocals, which completely changed my vocal cords. So it was a really nice kind of learning experience, but I think for all of us. But for me as a vocalist in particular, I felt like, oh, cool, I'm getting to know my instrument way better through this. So yeah, it was really fun.